Hey, what's up?
Hey, Dashon, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. I'm
How
good.
is how's the new house, first of all?
New house is great. Austin's great. Ari's doing well. We're good. We're really good.
Of course, Ari always looks like he's doing well. I've never seen a kid have a bad day.
Yeah.
I'm
How
sure
are
he does
you?
though. I
How's the family? How are the
It's good.
boys?
It's good. It's good. The Beckham is entering his terrible twos, as you're fully aware of the terrible two boy
Yep.
era.
Yep.
And Preston, I will give Preston credit though. He actually sleeps a lot better
Oh,
than
good.
Beckham did. Like he's got some good stretches. Like we couldn't get Beckham to sleep until like 11 p.m. like every night. Preston's like, all right, look,
Yeah.
guys, when you're ready, 9:30, I'm ready. Like we go to bed.
Yep.
So nah, it's been fun
Oh,
though.
good.
So
Good.
yeah, I kept, I was gonna change my hat for this episode, but I was like, I have to wear my Tacovas hat.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I told a friend like that lives in Austin too, like a joke. We actually just got a Tacova store in Columbus.
Amazing.
So yeah, Christmas is gonna be it's gonna be
I
well
love it. I just got my
wild.
first pair of Tacoma boots. I know I've been here for
Nice.
16
Oh
years.
yeah, yeah. Wait. I was like,
I
hold on.
know. I know. I shouldn't admit that, but I
Oh,
just got my first pair of boots, so I'm
okay.
excited.
All right. Well, we should give the listeners a little bit of background. We are good friends, but I think uniquely we have worked together.
Yeah.
So you're one of the only people that has like seen, personal, like for people out there listening, her, myself, my wife, her husband, Colton, we're
Yep.
all like really good friends. But so, I wanted you to really jump in here and help me out, kind of kick off like the first guest slash host of the podcast. So we're going to do a little different forum today, everyone. Anna is going to interview me, which is funny because I actually almost worked on Anna's team. We were trying to
Yep.
move back to Austin, and we ended up staying in Ohio. But I always miss Hill Country. Is Lakeway considered Hill Country?
Yeah, I think so. I think we
Okay,
are. We
all right.
are.
I consider it Hill Country. Like
Yeah.
if I was to move back to Lakeway and people were like, "Oh, do you live in Hill Country?" Regardless, I would say I live in Hill Country.
Yeah. It
So
is. Yep.
awesome. Well, hey, let me give everyone a little bit of background about you, first of all, and then I'll let you kind of take over and we'll just have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Love it.
So Anna is very humble, so I'm gonna like brag for her. One of the most badass people I know. So I would consider you, I would consider you a senior director, but would you just consider yourself like senior leader
Yeah.
at so senior leader at Dell on the core enterprise side, enterprise acquisition side, has done extremely well. President's Club after President's Club. I mean, I feel like you've done more 15, $20 million deals than anyone I know. I don't think I know anyone that's done the amount of deals you have. So very high ranking executive, has had a extremely successful career, been a mentor to me. So I do okay? I think that was pretty
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
All right.
appreciate it. Yeah.
So I'll
Yep.
turn it over
So
to you.
awesome. Well, thank you, Deshaun. I am honored to have this conversation with you. I think, just like you mentioned, as a friend and as a peer in our profession, I'm extremely proud and excited to see what you're doing here. And for all the folks that are listening, you guys are going to get to see just who Deshaun is and kind of how he got to this point today, because he's going to have a tremendous impact. I know he will, on our community, on the youth, on our peers, within the community. So really, really excited to be here and to have this conversation with you, Deshaun. I want your listeners and I want the listeners to hear a little bit about you. Like, tell us about you, a little bit about your background. Like, who is Deshaun?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I like go back sometimes to my hometown, which is Lima, Ohio, small
Yeah.
town here, Northwest Ohio. And I'm not shy about like car I drive or where I live. I'm very like, I like to enjoy the fruits of my labor, for example.
Yeah.
But it really hit me, I'd say like a month ago. Like I was home and some kid like stopped me and he was just like, hey, like, I think he was probably like maybe a freshman in high school, but he was just like, hey, like, what do you do for a living? And called me like sir, and I was like, so like that made me realize like, okay, well maybe I do have something to give back to a certain like group
Yeah.
that really wants to hear it. And so like, yeah, I think so. Started very humble beginnings, like, strong mom raised me and my brother by herself. And so, you know, super active. I was an all-state safety in sport or in football, played sports in high school. Never really thought about business or career at all. I was fortunate enough to just grow up in a pretty solid neighborhood, and like my best friend's parents were like teachers, nurses, some were doctors, but like just very like, American dream, just like good, middle America neighborhood. And so I never really saw anything different than that. And so like when I went to Ohio State, I wanted to be a teacher. I like had wanted to be a teacher and coach. So like those two kind of went in together. And then, I'd say like sophomore, junior year, I joined a fraternity, and I really just joined honestly to have fun.
Yeah.
But turns out like it was like one of the big three fraternities at Ohio State. And I had a lot of friends whose parents were senior VP of sales at Nike, or VP of operations at UPS was one of my friends' parents. And like a lot of them were entrepreneurs. They had started like commercial real estate companies and like venture capitalists. And so these are just job titles. I don't necessarily know if it's like more about like kind of where you live, but like unless you're in a very like kind of, I would say, affluent, area, like I don't know if you hear as much about these type of careers.
Yeah.
And so I would say senior year, I really went out to like Martha's Vineyard with one of my best friends. I'm actually speaking at his wedding here in a couple weeks. We'll really rehearse it. I don't think we're going to speak at the wedding. But long story short, I was having a beer with his godfather. I mean, we're just happy. So Michael Nicholas, I'm sure actually you'll probably hear this. I've probably name dropped you 100 times when people ask me how I started my career. But him and I were having a beer, staring at the ocean, great day. And I didn't know what he did. And then at the end of our conversation, he was like, hey, think you'd be a great teacher. But, from a personality perspective, like, I believe you'd be great in sales. Turns out he was the executive vice president of sales at Nike at the time. And he's like, hey, take my number down, and essentially became my mentor after that. That was about 7 years ago. And so I get back. I still don't really know what I want to do. I think I want to be in sales, but I don't really know. And then one of my best friends had just joined like the Oracle Class Up program. And if you're at Ohio State, or if you're at like any high school, like it's not really a program that you know much about unless you're at a Big Ten school.
Right.
And Dell does the same thing. Dell does the class. You guys don't call it Class Up program though. Do you call it like?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember what we called it, but like yeah, it's all the same kind of class. Yeah. And so my buddy was at this. It was a career fair, and I was like, man, I don't think I should go. And this is a lesson about like also like if you believe you should do something, and there's like a doubt, you should push yourself to just go do it. Like I think this was a really good example of like how these things started. And so like I went to the career fair, gave the recruiter my resume and everything. Turns out it worked out. I moved to Austin. I started working for Oracle. Wow. And then that kind of kicks off like a career I just never imagined, to be completely honest.
Wow. So that conversation with that Nike sales executive probably opened your eyes to just sales. Hey, I didn't even know I would be good at sales.
Yep. And because a career they don't talk about in college. Did you guys have a sales major at your, So I don't know any schools that do.
I think now they're starting to, but
Baylor does.
Yeah. But we did not have, to your point, it's like if someone told you sales, I think people thought of like car sales and just kind of
Yeah.
the standard, just like old school sales. It wasn't
Yep.
technology
For
sales
sure.
or
Exactly.
supply, transportation or, different types of sales. So, and then that career
Yeah.
fair, to your point, is kind of push yourself outside the boundary and go to this career fair because you don't know who you're going to talk to or what opportunity you might see, right?
Exactly. And
So,
another one of my friends also says, I will, Cass. Like, I take
yeah,
this quote from Cass all the time.
yeah,
Like, closed mouths just do not get fed. If you don't raise your hand, you can't get called on.
yeah.
And that is just a lesson for anyone out there listening. Like, you have to raise your hand.
Yeah. No, love it. So, Dashon, what do you think? Like, obviously, having this conversation, going to the career fair, like, opened your eyes and I think exposed you to other opportunities. But what do you
Yep.
think helped you be fearless as far as I think so many people and listeners out there, they're like, oh, I wish I could do that, or I would love to do that, or
Yeah.
like,
That's a great question. Yeah.
what like pushed you to take that leap of faith? And
Well,
take a job at Oracle,
it's funny because like now I know you could empathize with this. Like
Yeah.
now, like when you feel like you do have a lot to lose, your decision making is a little more delayed
Yeah.
in terms of like what you risk you take.
Yeah.
At that time though, no one in my family had ever worked at like an Oracle or any of my friends, parents, peers like that I knew of had ever went and worked at a Fortune not let alone a Fortune 500, like
Yeah.
Fortune 25. I don't know. I think they're still in there, like
Yeah.
Fortune 50. And so I said to myself, like, what do I have to lose? Like, if I fail, all I have to do is just move back to Lima, which is
Yeah.
fine. Like, if I have
Yeah.
to do that. And so, but I will say, like, that to your point, right? That's like a springboard for like how I moved throughout the rest of my career, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. And I think having those conversations prior to you taking that opportunity, I think gave you that motivation and that drive and that confirmation that hey, there's something about you that you could be successful in sales and you could go take that leap of
Yeah.
faith and like other people saw it in you. And I think when we get that confirmation from people or see the data or someone tells us it's like, hey, you would be really good at this, I think it just helps support that.
It does. It really does. Because, I think we all deal with a little imposter syndrome because,
Yeah.
like, it's funny, too. It's right. You see these, like, when I was starting at Oracle, like, you see the VPs, you see the, like, senior VPs reporting up to the C level.
Yeah.
And when you meet them, you realize you're like, oh, wow, like, and you have a conversation, you're like, oh, you were my age at some point.
Yeah.
And you probably had the same fears that like I have, and you just stuck to it and stayed around and met the right people and stayed engaged. And like, I think that's just such a good, a good segue to like when I got to Oracle, I really was pretty nervous because I was like, ah, man, like these kids are coming from like really good schools because they take them from around the country and they all put us in like a certain hub.
Yeah.
And then you start to like work day in and day out and you realize either how just not seriously like people take their careers
Yeah.
or just they don't know what it takes to like really give yourself to it.
Yep.
And at that time I was just really like locked in. Like I was like, I'm gonna do this like hell or high water.
Yeah.
And it worked out. I mean, so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah. So for all the listeners out there, I know Dashon is also very humble, and I want to tell you guys a little bit about him personally and professionally because I think as he talks about his background, how he started at Oracle, his success at AWS and Dell, I know Dashon personally, just
Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa.
super and professionally, yeah. Yeah. So just super down to earth and humble, Dashon. Like you are just probably one of the best individuals and friends and peers that I have in my life. So the feeling is mutual. And what I see with you that I see in myself, and I think why you and I connect so much is that when you're passionate about something, you want to help others, you want to surround yourself with people that it's mutual. It's a network, it's a community, it's a pod. So I see that with your friends, I see that in your career, and I think that's what's made you so successful. And also that's what's opened up your eyes to what's
For sure.
available and what's out there. And I think one of the things that I'm even just having these conversations with you that you want to share with people is like creating that community and that pod and that network so that people take that leap of faith. So so listeners, like Dashon I think this is what he does day in and day out, personally and professionally. So I'm just so excited to see this launch. And so kind of going into that next phase of our questions, Dashon, like just giving them a little bit of background on you, like when did you have this light bulb moment of starting this podcast and starting this, launching this platform for your community?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been on my mind, to be honest. Like I knew you had started up, a business, but still, obviously working in your role. I knew a lot of friends who had like started things, and like, you always read like, don't start anything if you're not really like that passionate about it, because like if it gets hard, you're just gonna quit and you're not gonna want to do it. And I think you know this almost better than anyone about me. It's funny because like I'm a very corporate guy. Like I am like, I love my job. I like love what I do. Like I feel like typically, like I said in my previous episode, like people start these things because like they hate what they do and they just want to like find a way out. And I'm like in a weird spot because it's just like the total opposite. And so, I really started this really just like off the thought of, okay, I have a career that like you and I are in the same career field. That, and I promised myself, I was talking to Sammy about this, and like I promised like listeners, like I'd be really vulnerable about like my situation, because I think that's just like the only way to be if I'm gonna actually do this. I think there's a lot of software sales executives or technology sales executives who are just in the shadows, super high performers, doing a lot of things that just aren't really vocally out there on any kind of platform. And so when I started working at Oracle, I found out that the field AEs, which I never even heard of what a field AE was, was so for those out there, so a field account executive is essentially an enterprise account executive who lives in territory, whether it's like in Austin or you live in Columbus, and you service some of the largest accounts in that specific city. And so you may have like a couple that are like your top customers who spend a lot of money with you, and then there's like other parts of that business where like you're trying to get customers to kind of adopt with you more and spend more. And so I read an article on Business Insider. I'm not kidding. I still have this article bookmarked from 7 years ago, and I looked at it the other day. It was like in Business Insider that said, if you want to make anywhere from 250 to 400 grand a year, go be a software sales executive. And I was like, first of all, I'd never even heard of anyone like close to me making that amount of money. And so I was lucky enough to like kind of go down that path, and I've had a successful career within that range. And and like to your point, right? It's like, what made me even think to do this? It's like thinking back to my origins of like, not even thinking I would be in business. I thought I'd be a teacher. And now doing what I'm doing and being as successful as I've been, that made me think like, what? Like, I'm so happy and grateful about my career and my life that I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I just didn't put that out there. And so like that was the point of really starting the podcast, because I was like, there's people like you, there's people like me, who people see us, right? We may pull up at Valet and they're like, oh my God, these people are like superhuman. And now, trust me, there's probably some superhuman elements like to us about just like getting things done, but there are skills that everyone can build if they really want to. That was kind of the whole point behind the podcast. So Now the technology though, the technology is like really deep rooted in my like wanting to like have an impact in the hands of like every single person like that needs it at scale. Like at Dell or where I'm at now or anywhere, like I looked at my career and said I want global scale and global impact.
Yeah.
And I was either going to do that in a global role or
Yep.
now I'm thinking like, wow, I really want to try to do something from a global product standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you and I always talk about this. Like, that's the way that we consume information and we listen to podcasts. We go to YouTube, we go to LinkedIn, we go to all these social platforms to connect with people, to network with people. Now it's like you can
Yep.
do all this online. And so it's kind of bringing that all together in your single platform that, helps. That's the expectation, I think, of today's society.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
know?
And to your point about that, like to kind of add, I guess, a little more color to like how I even really, like the moment, like the light bulb moment. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about like running on like no sleep and like having time to just think.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like my newborn is like, just like getting up
Yep.
every 3 hours for a bottle.
Yep.
And I don't sleep as heavy as like Sam. So sometimes we just like, I can just pop up and do it and try not to wake her. And then when I do, like, I would say we were probably about 3 weeks in. And anyone who knows me, I love scrolling on LinkedIn. I love finding something that is like making me better or like of value. And it's about 3 a.m. and I'm feeding Preston and I'm just scrolling with the other hand. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. It's turned into Facebook. There's like so many comments. Some of them are super toxic. We're not really being productive on there. Sometimes you might just scroll past something that probably was really good for you, but like there's just so much in your face. There's just so much data. And so,
Yeah.
I really just kind of had a mic drop moment. And I was like, this is what I'm passionate about. Like I have friends, I have peers who call me every week and essentially just kind of ask me like, career advice. Not that like they're seeking like any kind of validation for me to help them. It's just like a soundboard insight.
Yeah.
And I realized how much I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
Like if they call me, I enjoy having that conversation with them because Sam will tell you like my passion is like, I just don't like to see people unhappy.
Yeah.
Like it really drives me crazy. Like to see people unhappy because I think it just stems from like not really being as like self-aware about like what does make you happy.
Yeah.
I think we get so stuck in like, like I had a bad day at work, and now you had a bad week at work, now you had a bad month, now you had a bad year, and you're like, I'm just stuck, and I don't necessarily know what I want. And I think that was just like a lot of it. It was like, how do I just take a step back, get to people earlier in their lives to like bring them data, but like also people like us who are kind of like in our careers, even if it's mid-career or like you've been in 10, 15, it's like, hey, you've been doing something for like 10, 15 years that like, I don't know, maybe you have had a change of heart and you're like, I don't know if I've really sat down and assessed my behavior, my personality, and in a very data-driven way, not just like, someone's asking you some questions, but like really getting probed by questions and getting data back to you.
Yeah.
So that's how it got started.
I love it. I love it, Dashon. Two things that you said that just kind of got me excited as well. I think it's like we have these conversations, you and I, and I'm sure you have it with multiple people in your network, and as do I, where you talk to someone, and even as you talk through things, maybe you didn't realize you were doing something in a positive way, and you just kind of bounce ideas off each other, and that insight, I think, just helps. It excites people. It helps people.
100%.
And it opens people's eyes, whether you're starting in your career or maybe you've been in a leadership role or executive role for 10, 15, 20 years. So I think just that dialogue is insightful and helpful.
I know,
You
and
know?
it's like it's really still comes back to like, I want you to be able to still make a decision that like
Yeah.
you want it to make.
Yeah.
But I want it to be a decision that you made for you, not because of influence from someone else who
Yeah.
thinks you should do this.
Yep.
Because they're projecting maybe their fears about their life and like how it may have turned out in terms of like their career, right? They're like, hey, I got stuck in a career I didn't want to be in, but it paid well, and I think maybe you should do that career.
Yeah.
Versus, like, if you're passionate about something, get the data, still make a decision, double down, but at least have the data. And
Yep.
so, that was a lot of the reasons for like for myself of like I never thought I would like try to be a founder because I like was such a corporate employee and thought I'd be and still
Yeah.
am, right? I still, like I said, I still love my corporate job. And so like
Yeah.
I think that like I just want to create two things. I want to create more founders for people that just never thought about being a founder because now they have data about an idea they had that like was an idea and now they can take it from idea to like proof of concept. And so like that's how essentially like I got started with this was I was just flowing down YouTube. I
Yeah.
like love YouTube. I'm all over YouTube. And I just was like, hey, I want to do this. So I'm just like trying to figure out like what's out there, what competitors are out there. And so from the platform perspective, I just I wanted to say, look, let's build a prototype. So I'm not sure I don't know if I mentioned this on the previous episode, but the prototype for the application, the mobile app, is already under development.
Awesome.
So hopefully over the next like month or so, like we can have it fully out on the App Store, ready to download. It can take up to like hopefully I believe about 1 million users without like breaking. Essentially, I
Yeah.
think that's like the
Yeah.
threshold. But
Yep.
I was talking to some of my buddies last night. I was at a wedding, and I said, I built this with like the kids, like the seniors from my high school in mind. So at the end of the year, I would love to just take the prototype to my high school and have the first 100 users be the senior class of my high school
That's awesome.
before they go to school and say, listen, use this to just, even if it just sparks new dialogue amongst you,
Yep.
your parents, your peers, your mentors,
Yeah.
whoever it is. I wanted to spark new dialogue. I wanted to create the ability to have a conversation with your parents. If you're like, hey, I don't know if I want to go to school. I want to be a founder. I want to start this company. Here's some of the data I pulled from the application. I'm still going to do it. Or, hey, you know what? I pulled the data. I'm going to pivot. But now I have enough personality data to say what I want to major in when I
Yeah.
go to Ohio State or I go to, UT. So, I mean, those are the two lanes I really just like. I mean, there'll be others that like kind of come out of it, but I think those are the two lanes I definitely want to travel down. Is like, we just want to create more founders.
Yep.
And we also want you to have more career certainty and purpose around your career making decisions versus honestly, the epidemic that I think we face is career uncertainty and just career dissatisfaction. I mean, if I took a poll of like 100 million people, I bet, 9 out of 10 people are just not satisfied with
Yep.
their career.
Yeah.
Now, that's a high number. I'm just guessing, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my guess.
But I remember when I went to college, it was like, I didn't know. You're just taking all your, your undergrad classes. You don't
Yeah.
know, you're not exposed to,
Nope.
what's out there. And now I think just exposing people, talking to different founders, talking to different entrepreneurs, talking to different people in different industries that you're like, wow, I never even knew. You were talking
Never
about
knew.
someone that's a teacher that wants to start their landscaping business in the summers, or someone that sells beauty line on, like maybe on the nights and
Yeah,
weekends.
but that stuff happens all the time, though. I think that's the
Right.
point. This stuff's
Right.
happening every day, and it's
Yeah.
not like crazy. It's not groundbreaking. It's like, hey, these
Yeah.
are people that are like have invented like just another stream of income for themselves, whether you want to call it a side hustle.
Yeah.
I don't like the term side hustle. I think like, I mean, you created something. Like,
Yeah.
it's a hustle, but it's not like
Yeah, it's
like hey man,
another venture, another.
you don't have to be one thing.
Yeah. Well,
Like
they say like now if you want to be a millionaire, multimillionaire, you have 7 to 8 streams of income. So maybe you
yeah,
have a couple different businesses and you have your main career. But to your point, you've talked a lot, even in your previous podcast, you talked about what are you passionate about? What drives you? Like what would make you happy? Like what if you woke up and you had a landscaping business and you loved doing the design and all of that? Like how
yeah.
would that be? You
Now
know?
I will say I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit on the passion thing. Like I hear the passion thing a lot out in like any kind of videos. So I'm not preaching like, hey, if you're passionate about like running like an orchestra, like that's great too, but like you got to be the 1% of like the orchestra leader of like the world, right?
Yeah.
I would say like I want you to discover your passion in our
Right.
platform, but I also want you to have data about about your passion. So like we're merging the two, like real life data, the idea. It's all consuming the data on one platform, and we're spitting it back out to you. The platform will continue to learn and grow with you. We'll hopefully at some point, as you know, right, like we'll continue to train the model and get the outcomes a little more tailored to you. But I think from a like if you're following your passion, I just want you to have the data to really drill down about your competitors, or like why I think like on the data sheet it says like 42% failed in year one because they didn't have enough cash on hand.
Right.
Or like whatever the reason is. It's like I want you to have that on a single page. I don't want you to have to go to ChatGPT or Google to like get separate things. It's like, hey, we're gonna pull all that in and have it on a single platform. Now, easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that is like hopefully the goal, and I want it to be fun. I think I made a joke. I was like talking to someone at the wedding last night, and I was like, you know what I really want to eliminate? When you graduate high school and you go to they're not even like your friend. You go to like your friend's graduation party.
Yeah.
Like, the high school graduation parties.
Yeah.
You bring a card, you're sitting there, and now you're seeing all your friends' parents and your parents' friends and like a bunch of random people, and every single person is asking you, hey, what are you going to study? Or what are you going to do next?
Yep.
You don't have a plan? Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I don't want to eliminate that. I feel like that's good for you because it puts a little pressure on you.
Yeah.
But what I want to eliminate is that fear you get when you get that question. I want you to say, hey, I am coming to this graduation party with the data in my hand, and I'm able to have an intelligent conversation with whoever is asking me this question.
Yeah.
Like I think that's a funny, simple like way, but like it's real, right? It's a real thing that people deal with. I think it takes a little bit of pressure off of you because you've done the work to understand yourself and understand what you're getting yourself into, so that when you communicate it to others around you, we all are a victim of like not falling for like, hey, what people are saying we should do, but we all feel a little way about like, hey, if I tell you I'm starting a company, I kind of want to hear that like you think it's a good idea, even if I think I don't. Like everyone kind of does, right?
I think it influences. People are influential, and so I think. And for those of you that are listening, like Dashon and I have been in the technology industry. So when he talks about the data, there's so much. Think of everyone that's on social media, all the information, all the data that's like out in the world. They're going to be using this platform to help you and listeners and people learn more about maybe your likes, your dislikes, your interests. To Dashon's point, like what will help you be successful or unsuccessful, or things you have to think about to prepare in order to like take that leap of faith and move forward, but to give you the data to back that up and help support that next step, which is super exciting. I mean, we're in this we're in this crazy time in the world right now with all the data and how we can leverage that data to make
100%
decisions and get insights, which is super exciting.
Well, to your original question about like what made me even think like kind of to just like get started on.
Yeah.
So I like, first of all, I'm not a technical person at all. So like people hearing this probably like, did you like I don't know, go to school for like
You
this at all.
developed
Like,
this
no,
yourself.
no, I did not. No, no.
Yeah.
Now, luckily though, I will say I working at AWS provided me like, and Dell, like both
Yeah.
combined, provided me like the ability to like understand infrastructure and like the way that an application needs to be built. And
Yeah.
so like I can have a conversation around like what I want and like the outcome I want.
Yeah.
But what's nice is like I didn't feel as nervous about getting it going because of the barrier of entry today is like with AI, there are AI companies popping up every day.
Yeah,
And what's
every
nice
day.
is like the cost to do so is minimal. And
Yeah.
so I watch a lot of like venture capital, like YouTube's like Y Combinator,
Yep.
and they say that like just so many people that want to start a company take way too long to launch, right? Like they say like, they take like 6, 12, 2 years to launch. And then you launch something that you don't even know if people want or not.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's why I labeled the first episode, quote unquote, just launch.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at. Like I've launched in probably about 2 months now. It's been full working like 2 months. And so the goal is like, all right, let's launch. Let's understand what users want. Let's understand what like our audience wants to hear.
Yeah.
If they don't want to hear, about some of the stuff we're talking about, we'll just keep iterating. And like, I think that's the biggest thing is people are just so fearful about like what people are, have to say or what they're going to think about it. But it's like, put it out there. If
Yep.
it sucks, just iterate, get
Yeah.
feedback, make sure it sucks
Yeah.
a little less on the next episode, a
Yep.
little less after that. And so I did get a little courage too from, I don't know for anyone out there really like, we didn't use it at Dell, but like I think some people like use it quite a bit, like Candly, the scheduling app.
No, but yeah.
So, so it's a funny story. So the founder of Candly, or Calendly. Wow, I just butchered that. I think it's Calendly.
Calendly.
Yeah, so it's a like a scheduling app. He was a infrastructure sales executive like for like his first 7 years out of school. He worked at like IBM, a few others, and he just got really like upset about how long it would take him to like schedule meetings. He would, how it goes, right? You gotta like
Yeah.
email like you gotta email like 4 or 5 different people, get the schedules
Yeah.
together. That takes forever.
Yeah.
So but he wasn't technical, and so he went to a third party kind of like outsourced software development build and built the application prototype. Prototype was so well done that like they did find an audience for it, and then like I mean now I think I think they evaluated that business about $3 billion I think now.
Wow.
But like there's a lot of organizations that use it, and so
Yeah.
I read into like his story a lot too. It kind of really like gave me a lot of courage around like, okay, as long as you know what outcome you want your users to have, you can seriously just back into that.
Yeah.
Whatever comes under that and build towards it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. So Dashon, talk to us a little bit about when your listeners are listening to the podcast, using the platform. What do you want them to kind of their mindset or like to come to your app or the podcast with or to walk away with, like as they kind of engage with your application and the podcast?
To be honest, I'm doing my best to try to keep this simple. And what I really want is, I don't really want this. Like, if you're certain about your career, that's the whole point, right? I'd rather you do that and not come to the application and learn than to like be happy and, unhappy, right? So like, I'm good with that.
But could they learn more about that industry?
They could. Yeah, they really could. And they could learn more about, I think even if like, so I think I'm the perfect example where like, even though I'm happy in my career, I still like was like, hey, I think there's more I could do.
Yes.
And that's how this all really got started. And so what I want them to do though is like, I want some of the users or whoever they are to like come to the podcast or to the platform with just being uncertain and not having answers.
Yep.
Because I want that to be normalized as like, okay.
Yeah.
Because like I think we just don't normalize that enough. We look at people on like Joe Rogan's podcast or any of these like Call Her Daddy podcasts, like, and they just everyone on there always seems like they just have it all together, and it could be a little intimidating for people who just like people like you and I know that like that's not the case. Everyone's like normal people, like they got problems too. They just happen to like do really well.
Yeah, we're all
and they're
human.
driven that way. We're all human. We all have problems. And so like,
Yeah.
I want them to come to a podcast though that's just like super authentic. Like we're just like, we'll edit some stuff if we need to, but like for the most part, it's just like people having conversation with other people
Yeah.
about like purpose. And so I want them to come to the platform uncertain and then leave. You still may not be certain after day one. You still may not be certain after month 3 on the platform. But as you enter that journey, like each day, you're just getting more in tune with yourself, what you want. And that still may change. You may say, you know what, I want to do something like the lawn care things. Like, hey, I think I want to do this. And then, I don't know, 6 months later, you think you may want to do something else. And that's okay. But now you've gone to a platform versus like Instagram, LinkedIn, where like you can still get some things done and still have fun and be productive. But like you come over to Cognition.io to specifically be productive and build skills.
Yeah.
And honestly, was an unintended outcome, I believe. Like you're also building a skill of just how to interact with AI. And I think everyone's so like, what does that even mean? Like, what does artificial intelligence mean? I get that question all the time. And I'm like, it means a lot, but like in its simplest form, it's like, how do you use natural language to interact with essentially a computer system that is built on an algorithm, that helps you like have a conversation in natural language and gives you natural language back. But is 10 times faster, smarter, quicker than you or me combined.
Yeah.
And I think that's like half of it. It's like just learning how to use AI in a way that serves you and makes you better. No need to be scared of it. Just learn how to use it. It's not entirely that hard, especially with all the platforms now. But I want them to walk away with like feeling better about that, feeling better about like understanding themselves, but then really learning how to like, I think you and I, like we've learned this skill a lot as like being sellers, is like taking the data points that like your customers give you.
Yep.
And saying, how do I conceptualize that, communicate that back to really help them understand the outcomes like they're trying to drive towards.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. I want my users to like get the data from all consolidated in all the things they've been searching for on the platform.
Yeah.
But learn how to use it, conceptualize it, and then communicate it back to whether it is their parents or their guidance counselor or their wife or husband. Like, hey, I'm making a pivot. Here's why. And just be able to really just like honestly, you even have to just show them your phone. Like, hey, this is why.
Yeah. Yeah. To articulate.
We want to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I think I'm super excited about this platform because to your point, it's like I go to LinkedIn, I go to YouTube, I go to podcasts. It's like I go to all these different platforms. And to your point, the lack of engagement is just, it's not there.
We've lost it.
We've lost it. And listeners know this about Dashon as well. Like him and I are very similar in this sense as well. Like having that growth mindset and constantly like learning and growing and evolving and hearing a new perspective and a new thought. Like I'm most excited about that because you're always going to walk away listening to an interview or a conversation like, oh, I never thought of it that way, or that's a great idea, or maybe that's interesting to me. So that's what I'm most excited about. I think this is going to be a really awesome platform. So talk to the users about, okay, what's next? Where can they find you on like YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn? Like what's
so we're doing it all. LinkedIn's like I don't know if I'll do LinkedIn for the podcast.
Yeah.
I plan to do LinkedIn for like the actual platform because we're gonna build like essentially a full business around that. Like so this is just more for like us to like chat, have good engagement, learn. Now, to be honest too, like I've kind of gone, I'm like one of those people who like, I would rather listen to like an hour podcast on a drive. Like you gotta, you and I, we drive to like customer sites like an hour away or two. And I like to listen to a podcast for like an hour or two. And so sometimes I find myself wanting to listen to like something that's like Joe Rogan. It's like really relaxed and just like, maybe I can learn a little bit. And then sometimes I do like more of like a business, like podcast.
Yep.
I wanted my podcast to be a mix of both. So I really want you to just be able to like, hey, you know what? I learned a little bit about like how he thought through like his go-to-market and his target audience, and I'll do some more like individual ones, like where I'm kind of talking more about that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Then I'll also have some where we're just like, hey, I'm passionate about, learning more about AI in this specific capacity because I think it's a skill set for, the future. Like we'll do like an episode like that. And so, to answer your question, like everything will be available on pretty much every platform.
Okay.
There'll be two sides of the business in terms of like the actual technology company, which is Cognition IO. Funny, people are like, that is such a mouthful. So I think I've mentioned a little bit, but like cognition is essentially a synonym for like just deep thought thinking. It's like it's really a well-known term in like teaching when you're like going to get your teaching degree. Like it's like cognitive development in like younger like students, and so like I kind of took that and like combined it with IO, which is like infinite outcomes.
Love it.
Also, someone else took my domain name on GoDaddy, so I had to improvise. So that's also the truth. But yeah, so on that side of the house, it's like we will have the consumer part of the business, which is like what we just talked about, right? Just helping as many lives as possible.
Yep.
So the basic model will be like a Facebook model. Like everything is free. You're on the platform. If you're a user, you're free, right? But since we are doing such a like specific offering, if you're a free member, you'll get, and it's also mixed with like the Spotify offering as well. So if like you're a free member, you will have, I don't know, maybe we haven't decided on the number yet, but like probably like 5 to 10 search queries a day talking to Izzy.
Yep.
You'll get some stuff back. And then, you'll get like the same kind of number, right? You maybe get like 5 to 10 data sheets per week or month. Haven't decided yet.
Right.
Now, again, if you are a paid user, you will get no ads, and you will also have unlimited search queries, unlimited data sheets, and then additionally, we really provide you with like that additional like executive summary. Like, hey, based on the data, these are also like the top like 5 like influencers that like are like targeted towards like what you were searching.
Yep.
But then there's like, I couldn't like not think through this. Like I did want a corporate offering. And I felt like I had to. I was like, I've been selling to corporate executives like for 8 years now, and I like have to do it. So there's like the higher education side, and then there's like the actual corporate side. So from my higher education, I think of Ohio State's a perfect example. I'm here, my alma mater. What we would do is we would offer Ohio State. So sorry, let me backtrack. So for the paid members, it'd be $10 a month. I forgot to mention that.
Which is like a cup of coffee a month. It's like
a cup of coffee. You're using artificial intelligence to hopefully find something more purposeful. I think that's a great investment per month.
Yeah.
Even if you use it a little bit, still worth it.
Super affordable. Yeah.
So on the Ohio State side, it's like, okay, we go to Ohio State and say, hey, look, we want to offer this to all 50,000 students, but we want to build you a tenant for yourself for Ohio State. Yep. Ohio State branded, it's for your students. And so what we would do is we would take every single one of their curriculum data points. So like if it's every single job that they have in their system that is built into their curriculum, like, hey, here are the careers you can do if you go pre-med. Like we'll put all that data into the platform. And so as students start like their first year of college, they're like, hey, what am I meant to pursue, or what am I meant to study based on my personality? And so you'll get unlimited personality tests. So it's like, hey, Anna, would you prefer, or are you more nervous about building in a Rubik's Cube or standing up and giving an hour speech in front of your class?
Yeah.
Like, that's probably a bad example, but like it'll be somewhere in there. But you'll get answers back, right? You'll get like, okay, well, if you would rather give a speech, then like you probably are better suited for sales versus like being in engineering, where like maybe you thought you should be an engineer because someone told you should be an engineer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that is from a school perspective, like offer that, they get unlimited. And so hopefully kids come out of school where it's like, hey, I spent 50 grand to go to Ohio State. And when I came out of Ohio State, over those 4 years, I got to really know myself, understand my personality, understand my behavior, and really figure out what I wanted to study. And so I didn't waste 2 years on a major that like I really didn't want to do because I was so in tune with the data really early. Now, I'm sure they have an offering like this, but I know they don't have like the fun component where like now we're integrating with like the most popular hashtags in Instagram pages, TikTok pages, YouTube pages that are Ohio State specific. Because there's like so many probably Ohio State influencers and stuff now.
Yes.
Like that's Ohio State specific.
Yep.
And boom. Now Ohio State is fully involved in like, hey, we're helping our students become professional TikTokers
Yeah.
by giving them more data to be, better suited to be a TikToker. If that's what they're going to end up doing anyway. We'd
Right.
rather have them in school, learn it here, than like leave and just like have to try to figure it out on their own, right? We want to help guide them, slowly move them there if that's what they're really going to do. Because you can't deny that. Like that's happening. Like if we want to act like that's not like a real career field, like that's happening.
I was talking to our old neighbors, a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I was like, what do you guys want to be when you grow up? And one of them said, I want to be a YouTuber. Like that's just, it's a different generation. It's a different
100%.
But to your point,
but it's real.
Universities and high schools, they know times are changing. They know access to data is changing. Like there's, to your point, younger founders, like if they can enable and prepare them and educate them,
100%.
it's a win-win.
It's more just like university. Yes, exactly. Help enable this. Be a part of this.
Right.
And be with the times, like to your point, right? And so that's more on the university side. And on the corporate side, I think it's even the same way, right? It's like, let's say, like, you know how this is too. We deal with this a lot. Like in Dell or Oracle, like the years 1 and 2, or like 1, 2, and 3, where they come into the sales program because that's like the best program to come into. You learn the organization a little bit, get on the phones, learn the product, learn the customers. And then you're like, well, you're starting to lose a lot of employees to like different companies because like you really didn't get to understand that employee to retain them and understand what they want. And so we would do the same exact thing. We would go to a Dell and say, look, we're going to take every single role that you offer globally. We're going to put all of those job descriptions, all of that data into the platform. And we are going to have your employees, whoever wants to participate, like you pay for them, but like some way bill it back, whatever it is. But it's the same way. You buy the license from us and like you release this data to us so that like we build a tenant for Dell. It's Dell labeled, and each employee really now gets to take the behavior and the personality assessments and say, I'm in sales today, but my personality is more suited towards product marketing.
Right.
Now I understand like quick, concise data around what are the roles and responsibilities of product marketing. How do my skills fit? How do I build the skills to go into product marketing here internally? And now you can kind of flag that to your manager or your leader and say, hey, here's what I believe I'm passionate about based on the data. And your manager, your leader is going to be like, yeah, I'll help you get there.
Yeah.
Because if that keeps you here at Dell, we would rather that than you leave because we're not helping you discover that more, right? And so it really doesn't require any more time of leadership or anyone because like
it's more insight. It's just more insight that we're learning.
It's on their phone. It's like they're doing the learning themselves.
Yep.
And they come to you and say, hey, this is who, I believe I should be. Yeah. And so as you can see, I have thought about this extensively. Does it mean that like any of this is easy? I feel that, sometimes, and this is, like I said, just me being overwhelmed and like, vocal about it, like, or even just vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem that I was joking like with Sammy, and I was like, "What makes me think I can solve this?"
Hey, I think it's to your point. It's having conversations. It's
Yeah,
sharing information, knowledge, data that we're exposed to today. Like that's something we can
yeah,
do, and that's something you can control and contribute to.
yep.
So
But then I
that's
come to the same answer again. Like when I say, "Hey, why do I feel like I can solve this?" It's not that. It's more about why not. Like
yeah,
why
yeah.
not go try? And so it kind of goes back
Contribute.
to like it
Yeah,
kind of goes back to like when we were talking about like when you feel like you don't have anything to lose,
yeah,
you'll go after your dreams. Like you'll do it.
yeah,
But then I think there's another layer where you're like, my career's going great. I don't have anything to lose. Like, let's go try to build something
yeah,
monumental. And
yeah.
if I help a decent amount of people, that's really all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dashon, when you think about like 18-year-old Dashon and even just your high school,
Oh, man.
like listeners that are going to be like, when you think back to yourself, but also just like kids that are in high school now and going to enter college, like what's a piece of advice or something that you would have told maybe yourself when you were 18 or just even your listeners now that are
Yeah.
like a younger,
Well, I would. So there's actually a few things that I really love to be transparent about this. Like, I think number one, this is the one like guru thing I do agree with that I hear out in like podcasts and stuff.
yeah,
You do have to have conviction about like what you want to do. And that simply just means like hell or high water, like
yeah,
you have to believe in what you're doing because
yep.
people will around you at some point say, "Hey, look, you've been doing this for a while, it's not working, you probably should quit." Like that's going to
Even
happen.
when, even when you're successful, you're still going to have those moments.
100%.
Yep.
And so I would say I would have told 18-year-old Dashon that for sure.
Yep.
But the other thing that like I probably would have told 18-year-old Dashon that like I really didn't know this really about my personality, but this is so I mean, I think you were going to love this. Like people don't tell you that half of being successful is willing to move away from where you grew up.
I mean, I did. Yeah, we both did.
You, unless you live, look, unless you live in New York, or you
Yeah.
live in LA, or you live in Austin, or you live in Miami. Miami's like crazy now.
Yeah.
Chicago. Unless you live in those hubs, or Seattle, unless you live in those hubs,
Yeah.
and you want to be in technology, or you want to be in finance, like in the highest ranking, and I think that is what essentially separated me early was I wanted to go where the top players were playing because I knew even if I did not play up fully to the level of play, I would get better.
Yeah. It's going to elevate you.
You can and the reason I say that is like I do understand the fear of like not wanting to leave where you're at because of fear of just like, hey, this is all I've known or like this is like
Yeah.
what I've done. I mean, I get it, but like if you don't make your life hard in the ways you want to make it hard, someone else will make it hard
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
So I would tell 18-year-old like I don't know. I would say, hey, like you did a good job of just go on to do that. Like first of all,
Yeah.
and then the last thing I would just say is like no, and you like deal with this probably a lot more than I do too. No one tells you the sacrifices you have to make in playing at this level.
Yeah.
Late nights, driving home from a conference. You don't get home till 1 a.m. Or you have to fly across the country for a training on Father's Day. Like, I spent half Father's Day in the morning at home, and then at night I was on a flight to Atlanta because I had to go to a training.
Yeah.
Like, I think people just kind of see, like, oh, you work from home, or like, but they don't see you in an airport away from your family like for sometimes days on end. And it's like, hey, play me your like small violin. But like I would say like I just think you have to be built a certain way to like make sacrifices like that. And I think that's what I would say to myself is like, luckily I was okay with it, and it is who I am, and kind of got to that point.
Yeah.
But it was like 5 or 6 years in, like I did find myself at like like, wow, this is heavy. Like I didn't know like this is what was going to come with like having such a successful career. And it's just, that's not talked about when you're younger or like, in school or anything. So I think those are definitely like the 3 things I would definitely take away from like really talking to myself about, or any 18-year-old that's getting ready to go to college.
I love it. I think this is super exciting because I think obviously through the podcast, we're going to get different perspectives, different kind of journeys, different pieces of advice. So I think it's going to be, I'm most excited about that as well. Just always hearing other people's perspectives and journeys, because it's all different. We're, parents now, we have our kids, we have careers, our significant others. It's like, to your point, you got to balance it all. It's like this.
I know.
But it's super rewarding and it's fulfilling. And when you surround yourself with like-minded people, it's a pretty awesome journey that we're on.
Yes. Yes. So I think that's a good spot to end there. I think we'll end there. Awesome. First, also, like, thank you so much for like taking the time to do this. Like, I couldn't think of anyone more perfectly suited to ask me these questions. But for guests out there, don't worry. We're going to actually do another episode of me just interviewing Anna. So Anna is definitely the next VP up at Dell. She has an awesome story to tell. We'll get to that. We'll have that episode. But, we'll chop this up. But, thanks for jumping on. And tell Ari and Colton I said hi.
I will.
Oh, actually, I'll see you in a couple of days. I'll be in town.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'll be hopping off the plane this week. I'll be there.
I know. All right, Dashon. Awesome. Well, good catching up. Super excited about what you're doing here. Excited for the community and the listeners out there. So
more to come. I appreciate it. All right.
Awesome.
See ya.
Thanks. All right. Bye.